to the Curator Shelf. You're joining me on a very hot day in Brussels. We're hitting about 30 Celsius, which I think is about 82 Fahrenheit. So you're gonna have to excuse me. You might hear a bit of sound from outside, but I have to keep the window open. But anyway, without further ado, welcome to anybody who is new to the channel, and welcome back to also those who have already subscribed. Good to see you all. I am the Curator Shelf. So without further ado, I wasn't sure what topic to do for today, because there's two things that I want to upload on, and I was just like, don't know which way I'm going now. But I think I'm going to stick to my original plan, and that is going to be a VR to Anna of Astral Lady. Now, Anna did a video lately, which is about, I think the thumbnail is I Don't Agree, and it was about basically, she had an opinion, that's what I think, basically she had a thought about another tarot tuber who I can't remember, and it doesn't really matter, I think, who had said basically that having lots of decks makes them a better reader. I think that was along the lines. But anyway, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of every single piece anyway, because what I'm about to say is not really contra to what Anna's saying or contra to anybody else. It's just my 2 cents worth. So I'm giving my 2 cents worth. Whether or not Anna asked for it, I don't know, but I'm giving it anyway. There you go. And at the same time, I thought I would do a little bit of a fun thing, which is what's in my Purgatory box. So you have that coming up too. So first of all, let's look at this whole issue again of consumption and buying and so forth, because I think it's an issue that we all visit very often. And I think that since I've been like doing this channel and watching people and all this kind of stuff, I don't think it's obviously it's not, you know, just tarot. It's an issue that we're facing overall. It's been going on in fashion for many years now. The whole minimalism trend already began like in 2016, and we've already had discussions on that whole area in 2016, 2017 in fashion. I know it went into the whole makeup arena as well. So there's so many people that have done this whole no buy, low buy, whatever kind of thing, and or minimalism, which is something else, slightly something else. But you know, there are variations on the whole consumption or not consumption topic. And my personal take in it is that it's not so black and white. There's definitely huge, you know, shades of grey in the middle, that kind of thing. And I don't think it also sticks to a person in one specific way. My personal thought is that how people feel about this topic and where they sit on it is actually changing as they live their life, as they have new hobbies, new needs, new discontinuations of whatever they were doing, moving somewhere else, perhaps even a new career. You know, we have gone through so much changes in the last couple of years as well. Some people have. So I actually don't think it's kind of like, you know, this person said they were going to be a minimalist, or they were on a low buy or a no buy, and now they're saying that they actually do allow themselves some things every now and then. And it, you know, like pigeonholing, I don't think is helpful in this one. So first of all, just to say out there, you know, that I don't think that this is about like they're wrong or they're right or I'm right and whatever this kind of thing is. I'm just giving my like perspective on it. So I have approximately, and the last count was a few months ago, so it's not even an accurate number, but I think it's approximately now coming up to, I don't know, 200 decks. And wait for it, this is not like for me an overconsumption, because like this, I've always also overconsumed when it comes to clothes and shoes. I was for a really like large part of my life a shoe fanatic, and right now I'm not, because like Brussels cobbles just, they kill our shoes. But if I could, I mean people have said like we would give you homage because your shoe addiction. But the other thing that I have always had, and that's why the Curator Shelf is born, is that I am somebody that reads a huge amount, like has done for many years of my life, since I could crawl basically. And at the height of my like consumption on books, but I'm somebody that will buy, by the way, secondhand books and all of that as well. So it's not like I necessarily have to have something new and shiny. Like, you know, I could go into a charity shop and start picking through books and find something that really grabs me, and I'll buy it, and I don't like I'm like that, and I will read it as well, you know. So I'm kind of like one of those people that just, I love to read. So when I'm in the UK and have been living in the UK, I would definitely go to the library and just borrow books and of course give them back. But that's how I have my relationship with books. And at the height of my books, I would say my book kind of like collection, I would say I had around 2,500 books. Now I've culled that to, I think it was culled down to 800, and I don't know where I'm at right now on the books at all. But I haven't been buying that much lately, especially because of the fact that when we went into the pandemic and people were just like buying loads of stuff, to be quite honest with you, I was just like sitting there going, I definitely have a to be read pile. I'm just going to go into that and read whatever I have. So it was really weird. I didn't really consume like that at that moment. I didn't also buy lots of toilet roll either, but that's another issue. But anyway, on the issue of consumption, I have had my own stories, definitely. But tarot has been really interesting because when I started to come back into tarot, so when I first, like I've said this so many times now on the channel, but when I first got into tarot, there weren't that many tarot decks available basically on the Amazon sites that I have available to me, because I'd already been living in Brussels by then. I moved to Brussels when I was in my early 20s, so I've been here for a large part of my life. But anyway, so I didn't have access to those. So I had like 4 or 5 tarot decks at the beginning. I think I had 5 decks. One of them was an oracle deck, which is a Doreen Virtue deck, which I still have and I still love. It's the Healing with Angels deck. I don't really use it that much, but I do love it. I do find it very beautiful. And then I also had I had the Gilded Royale, the Chira Marchetti deck. I had the Chrysalis deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith Radiant, which I can't stand, but I had that. I also had the Rider-Waite-Smith original, the Rider-Waite it's called. So I count them as one because it was just RWS basically. And then I had the Paulina Tarot, and that's why I have my bond with the Paulina, because out of all of those, she was the one that I was just really responded to, and I got like I learnt tarot, but she was the one that kind of like, it's like singing, you know, like that's when the cards sang to me kind of thing. So anyway, those were like the decks, and I didn't have that much. And on top of that, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to do like a lot in tarot. So I didn't buy a lot because it was more kind of like just testing waters. And I think in hindsight, and also I bought 2 books. I bought Cassandra Easton's introductory book to tarot. I can't remember what it's called. I had hers, and I think it was a Liz Dean book. A Joanna Bunning book. That was it. I had Joanna Bunning's, because I think she's done a book which was based on her website, like blogs she'd made of each and every card, and then she made that into a book. And I had that book, and I still treasure that book because it's so simple. It's just like a larger version of a little white book, but with more info. But I love those books, and those were the ones that I had. So I had like a basic pack, and if I could go back and advise new people to tarot, I would say just start with like a basic pack, because it just makes life so much easier. And it doesn't matter later on if you find another book and you think, oh, this is so much better, because the basic pack is really just to get somebody started. But there's a second element of it which is really important, which is it's really stable. It's a very stabilizing way to learn tarot, because you're not flitting everywhere, or a person who's learning is not flitting everywhere. But anyway, so my story was that I had only these basics, and because I had the basics, I did have to sit with them, because that's what I had basically. And what was interesting was that there wasn't really tarot tube that I knew of at that time. I think it was 2015, 2014, something like that. I didn't know of tarot tube at the time. I'm sure, I think Katie Flowers had already existed, was already online and doing her videos by then, but I didn't know of it. So what I'm trying to say basically is that I had those few items, but I was genuinely interested in just learning it. And I think it's really amazing, because now I look back, and that kind of like 1 or 2 years was really foundation for me, because I had so little. I had to really just focus on what it was. So if I had, let's say, the RWS with me, and let me see if I can get hold of the RWS now, or this mountain of stuff. Oh, here it is, right? So if I was working with, this is my original RWS, by the way, that I'm just getting out for you here. But if I had my original RWS with me, you know, I would that day like pick a card. So, you know, most of the time it would just be a random card, and what I would do is I would pick one. Let's say, so let me see if I can get one here. Okay, so I would pick, let's say, okay, so I've got the Nine of Swords here. And what I would do is I would look up what Joanna Bunning is saying about this. I would look at what Cassandra Easton is saying about this. I'd make some notes, like, you know, things that strike me. I'd look at what really stands out to me here. Here it's her duvet cover, and it's all of those symbols, you know, the astrology on her duvet. I'd also look at kind of like, you know, here the carvings, they really strike me as well. It looks a little bit like somewhere between, it looks a bit like Greek mythology actually, but I need to take a closer look. But you know, I would look at all of that. I'd look at the fact that Pamela Coleman Smith's signature is just here. So, you know, she's put it in there. I'd look at how the light is shining on this person's back. You know, it's just interesting. I would look at all of that and look at how the swords feel to me, how they come across. I'd make those notes, and I'd have to say that this is the interesting thing, because I've seen people say this on TarotTube, like, oh, you know, pull a card every day kind of thing. I would sit with this card for like 5 days, by the way. 4 or 5 days would go by and life would happen. Like, everyday life would happen. Like, and sometimes I'd be like, oh, maybe that's what the card was trying to tell me about. And that's how I bonded with the deck. And I know people are going to sit there going, well, if it's 4 or 5 days, and then they're going to count like 78 cards, and then we're going to be like, oh my God, that's going to take a really long time. And yeah, that's why learning the tarot took me like a year or more, because I was spending a lot of time with just one card, like a lot of time looking at like how this always looks like to me a column, and then he's on these cold mountains, and you know, the light is in front of him, and traditionally, you know, a lot of the times the hermit himself is the light. So it's always been struck me, you know. I always associate this back to, of course, my horoscope signs and so forth, you know, because that's meant a lot to me. So, you know, I would sit with something like this also for a long time. I'd also think about the cards that come before him and come after him, you know, specifically like 8, you know, in terms of strength or justice. And then I would think about, you know, 10, which is the Wheel of Fortune, and how they relate to the Hermit card. I'd look at corresponding the fact that, you know, how does the number 9 sit in other places, like what else does it correspond to, and of course, you know, and its relationship with another major arcana card, its relationship with, let's say, the 9 of Swords as well. So I do all of that, you know, how did they speak to each other, and that really for me was like an adventure. It was an adventure to learn tarot, and because it was an adventure, it's something that it's really preciously imbued in that sense. And I know that I can, with confidence, go ahead with tarot and with oracle decks, because I build that relationship and I give it that time. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, I don't have time for all of that. And I always say that when I don't give something time, that item or thing or whatever won't give me time either. You know, it's like a two-way street, because there is so much, you know, in the symbology, there is so much that's held in there that's full of sacredness, full of direction, full of guidance, that like devouring it like it's a fast food is really just gonna like take away from the intuition that I'm building. And you know, and it is intuition, it's inner tuition. So I need to have those times with the cards in order for me to like build, you know, an inner library or like an inner bibliothèque, and I can go in and get the files out of what I've been learning about these cards over time. And so I would always encourage somebody that it's better to have 3 or 4 days with one card or longer, and really allow oneself, you know, like if it intrigues you, how did the 3 of Pentacles come about? What's his relationship with the medieval times, with creating, you know, a lot of the times in the medieval world, making a building, being contracted and becoming the architect and the person who develops the blueprints of a building was extremely highly regarded, very much revered. People saw that person as kind of like, a pillar of society. Basically, they are considered a pillar of society. And because of the fact that they bring so much technique, they bring mathematics, they bring physics, they bring kind of like the chemistry because of the materials being created. They have a huge understanding of weather, and then on top of that, they do need theological understanding because of the fact that a lot of the buildings are built respecting basic Christian beliefs. This is in the medieval side of things, by the way. In the medieval world specifically, I'm talking about. Of course, in other parts of the world, there are other instructions on building, let's say, a temple or a mosque or a synagogue. So I'm just here mentioning some of the things that I know from the medieval times, vis-a-vis Europe specifically. But just being the architect of something is very, very well considered. So when I get the Three of Pentacles card, I'm not only just looking at kind of like commission, I'm looking at what it is to be the architect and to be the blueprint. And is it me that is being built? Is it me that's taking the instruction as part of the team? Or is it me being the architect here? Or is it me that's going to be enjoying the whatever is created, So there are different elements of me that can sit within one card. And what's beautiful about that is that when I read, those are the things that I'm going to bring to the readings for me. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to have that specific approach, but everybody has their own inner knowing, their own connection to the cards, their own kind of like, this is what it means to me. This is what it means to be sitting there holding on to everything for dear life. Perhaps, you're someone that has had difficulty, because of the background. Sometimes our socioeconomic backgrounds mean we don't have that much money to spend. Then we get money coming in and it's so scary to spend. It's like, oh no, I can't do that. Like it's taken me so long to earn that money. And so in a way, like, the money that we've earned kind of like traps us. And yet, we deserve to have that money. It's not like we don't deserve it. So there are so many things of your own belief systems that can be coming into a card. And it's good to observe them and know them. And the other part of it is that when one does that, it helps you as the reader to know when to not take that baggage into a reading as well. So for example, I might have some thoughts, right, on a card. I might have some thoughts on what it is to be the Page of Pentacles, but I need to know what's my thoughts and projections on it and what is the actual Page of Pentacles itself, when to separate them, and when also sometimes to use some of my own knowledge to think, maybe this is also influencing the reading, these elements that I know from my own experience around the page. And sometimes I can think, this is not to do with the reading, this is just like my own stuff around the page, put it to the side for a second and just focus on what's going on in this reading. And that kind of like discernment and that kind of like interplay between the cards is something that's built. And I'm still building it, I don't have all the answers in one go, but I talk about it because if I didn't have a few decks, and if I was flitting between decks, and if I had, let's say for example, if I had, 3 different strength cards in front of me, I know that really in the end, even I would walk away if this was my initial learning going, what did I just learn here? Wait, hold on a second. And so I think it's just so important that like we give ourselves that time. We look at the symbols, we study them, we take into account where the mountains are, how the land looks. We take into account, like for me, these people look like giants sometimes, and that's really like a big part of like my focus and my trajectory on the cards. I don't think it is for everyone, but it's really interesting for me to again and again see what crops up even right now as I'm speaking to you about these cards. So it's a bit of a ramble here, but it is a response to what Anna was saying about, like developing that relationship. And I'm not saying everybody has to learn on the RWS Classic. For you it might be, for example, a deck such as, I'm just going to pull something out here. For example, it might be for you, a more modern take, like this is the Tower of Oppositions. It's a deck I love, and it shows the reversals of a card within a card. And I love this deck. I kind of like keep it. I kind of like use it a lot, especially in the winter because it's got such a darkness to it. But you know, you can see so much going on within each scene. And I think that it's just amazing that today we have these varieties, right? Not everybody wants to learn on the classic IWS, but the symbols are so important because they teach us a lot. They give us a lot of clues. Like, you know, here you've got, I don't know what that is. I think that's a peregrine falcon. I'm not sure. You've got there, like, you know, or is it a white eagle? I don't know what that is, but it's not a dove, but it's a white bird. And then, you know, he's got this, you know, there's a flower that's developed. So it's a moment where growth and nourishment and joy are happening. And then in this one, it looks like he's off to his peril, and he's running, and he's got a ferret after him. So, you know, just the differentiation of the Fool here is just amazing. But again, you know, this is a really good deck for me to have close, because I'm always learning something. I'm always going in and thinking, wow, you know. And so I've had this deck since I think it was November last year or October or something, and I still, you know, it's been what, 9 months, and I still refer to it a lot. I use it a lot, and I still sit with it a lot at night and just look at some of the symbols and what are they showing me today and stuff like that. So that's why, you know, I think that you know, it's kind of like contra to what not contra, sorry, but it's kind of like in accordance to what Anna was saying, which is like, you know, this depth. And I think that one of the things that I kind of like, you know, because I'm just realized I'm rambling so much, but one of the things that that caught my eye was the fact that I saw somewhere a post, and I'm not going to say the exact figure because I don't, then that person might listen and they might feel ashamed or something, and that's not what it's about. But somebody had written, like, you know, they've got X number of decks, and I'm talking about like, you know, 80 or 90 or whatever or more. And then I see things like, you know, I've backed 30 Kickstarters and I can't stop backing them and stuff like that. You know, and I see all of that, and then the same person has said stuff like, you know, and this, I'm not talking about the same person, sorry, in all of these posts, but the same voices say also, and I'm still confused about the cards. I still don't understand the difference between things, or, you know, I've bought like 20 books on tarot and Jung, and tarot and what Barbara Moore says, and tarot and what this person says, and then, you know, tarot yourself, and then the Andy Metzer book, and all these books, you know, and they've got like 50 books, and they haven't still really actually opened one and worked through one, you know, and they've got 100 decks. And that's when I'm kind of like, you know, that's when I kind of like really have to say that the alarm bells go, where I'm like, you know, to build a relationship, all of that, it's not just the confusion, because of the fact that we are learning to tune in with ourselves and with spirit and with higher guidance, and however you want to put it, all of that stuff is actually going to block. It will, because it doesn't allow for the thread to emerge. And there's a red thread that will emerge through all of your learnings, through everyone's learnings, however the developer's a tarot reader, there is a fil rouge, you know, a red thread that will come through, and that can't happen when you're flitting. It will just be a complete mess. And that happens, by the way, in many areas of our life when we have to learn something, you know, and we're jumping around. And then again and again, the voice of a mentor or whoever will always say, cut down on all the noise, cut down on all of these books, you know, those two, you seem to like them, go with it, you know, and just run with it and focus. And I have that right now. I'm trying to learn something, and again, the counsel I get is you don't need all of that stuff. You know, you've got a few things that you can work with, just use them and focus, and you'll do better. I'm told straight up now, you'll do better when you develop 5 times on these things than 100 on all of these, you know. And so, you know, it's a really good principle to learn, where having a few will help us actually grow more when we're in those stages. So moving on from there, I just want to mention the other thing though, and you might ask them, what were you doing with all these decks? Why do you want all of these decks and all these things? And it's a really good question. I ask myself that question too. Why am I buying all these decks? And I buy them for fun, and I buy them because I enjoy looking at the cards. But when I want to clean my palette, I don't go to all of these decks. I have a few that I like to go back to, and they just help me clean my palette, and it's really important I do that every now and then. There are also times when I have to look at the shelf and go, okay, it's time to let go of things. I don't need all of this. And so I think letting go of stuff is natural. It's not that I did something wrong or somebody did something wrong in the purchasing. Part of the tarot journey is buying something and realizing that wasn't for me actually. So I think it's okay. But the key thing is to learn when you're getting rid of stuff, like what happened there, like why is it that didn't resonate? Because that's the thing that helps us to stop going further and further and further, you know. And I honestly believe that there's a lot of issues around things like, you know, I fully support Kickstarter in the fact that it helps independent creators come to the surface. I think that's an amazing thing. And I think that myself and many others, you know, one time in our life, a platform like Kickstarter for whatever we're developing, like, you know, I'm working in another area where I'm developing something. Platforms always help new people to emerge. So I will never say that Kickstarter is bad or it's wrong or anything like that. What I do want to say though, that's something that has really, really alerted me to the issue of consumption. I'm not talking about Kickstarter overall, there's a whole other topic, but the issue of consumption and Kickstarter is Kickstarter overall though works on the basis of the fact that once the product the creator kind of like publishes that they want to create this deck or whatever, and the time is set and the amount is set, it really becomes something that's on a timer. And in marketing and any kind of advertising, as soon as you put a limitation on something, like it's, you know, a limited edition or anything like that, it automatically in the human mind triggers scarcity. Automatically, it's subconscious, it will trigger scarcity. And as soon as it triggers that, it sends this signal subconsciously, do you want to get it now? It will just do it. And I've seen people fall for that one so much right now, and I'm like, I have backed two decks on Kickstarters, and then I decided not to because it just doesn't work out value for money in terms of where I live. Now, for people in the US, I appreciate, like, you know, backing something on Kickstarter, like for $40 US, you might get something which later on goes commercial, and you need to buy it from Etsy, and it'll be like $80 US, and you're like, oh my God, I mean, thank God I backed it on Kickstarter, I got it so cheap. So it's not to say that like Kickstarter overall is not a good idea. I'm not saying that at all. I think that it can sometimes be really good value for money, for sure. But it can only do that when there is enough of a pause to not back it just because the time is ticking and it's running out. If that is the leading cause of buying something, therefore red alert. That's what I'm going to just say. That's when you kind of like go, okay. Like, for example, and I had to stop myself on this one before I did it, was, you know, I did buy the Trionfi della Luna illustrated pits, and I do like Patrick Valenza's work. And as soon as I saw that he was putting it out there and it was 500 limited copies, I was like, oh, I want it, you know, scarcity. It rang that bell in my head fully. And the first thing I did was I messaged a friend and I said, I really want it, but I've got to stop myself for at least a day or two. Because if I give in to my scarcity mindset like that, I have just inbuilt the mechanism again. You know, I've just fed it again. And I had to stop myself going, no, you can wait a couple of days at least. And because my general rule of thumb is to wait at least 3 days basically. So I waited, you know, as much as I could, because I was like, there is no way that I want to miss it. But at the same time, I don't want to give into that FOMO kind of thing, you know. And behold, by the way, I think we're like 2 or 3 months since I ordered it. I've already received it. It's sitting on my shelf. I love it. I love the deck. Absolutely no regrets. FYI, there are still copies available of that deck. See, my FOMO won. But you can see there that that's one incidence. If I had Kickstarter unlimited like access to, in terms of not having to worry about extra customs charges and the huge shipping bill and blah, 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 I could easily see myself backing you know, 5 Kickstarters a week or 3 Kickstarters a week, and just, you know, money like flying out, or at the end of the month, you know, I look at my credit card bill and, you know, and like I've backed like 5 Kickstarters and it's $250 gone, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then, you know, I'll back them and I'll be like, oh, I'd really like to get like the really nice cool printing book and blah blah blah, and this, and the beautiful scarf slash tarot cloth, and I know it's just an extra $10, so I'll add that on. And then you're going from $250 to $300, and then, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, and that's for me where, you know, I have seen myself in life do stuff like that, and I'm like, oh no. So I'm just saying this from like the perspective of like observation here, that like Kickstarter is great, but just, you know, it's a red flag for me, the fact that the whole thing works in the system of a countdown, and the reminders are coming in, you know, your last chance to back it, you know, you might not get it for this money. And sometimes that will work out really well, and sometimes that is just a huge bill at the end of the month. Okay, so we're 30 minutes in, and now, before I kind of like torture you all anymore, what's in my Purgatory box? Woohoo, we're finally there. Okay, so these are decks that I'm not necessarily getting rid of, but they're kind of like, I'm questioning like, Okay, first and foremost, this is a deck that I absolutely loved when I got it, and now there's a big question mark. There's a big question mark going on right now, and that is the Bohemian Animal Tarot. I love this deck because the guidebook to this deck is fantastic, right? So this is a Rockpool mass market deck. Written by Scott Alexander King, illustrated by Sharon McLeod. I know they've done other decks. There's also an Oracle deck they've done. I think that's also Rockpool, that's available. The guidebook to this deck, first let me just show you some of the cards before you're like, well, show me some cards first. So it comes in this box, which to be quite honest with you is crap. I mean, the cards literally just float around inside the box, which annoys me. And no, I'm not somebody that goes out buying tarot bags. I'm just not. The whole deck, see, I'm having trouble getting the deck out of its box. The whole deck is gilded, for sure. So the deck is gilded. Here you go. And actually, I think the gilding is not bad. It's already showing wear, even though I've hardly used it. And I think that the art is beautiful. See, now that I look at it, I'm like, oh, I like this. I want to keep this. There's also an extra card in here, which I really like. But I do think it's a very clever deck. There's the Empress there. What an interesting Empress. But my reason for hesitation about keeping this deck is that I just don't reach for it enough. And I don't know, drop that one. And I don't know what it is. I think it might be to do with the fact that, I don't know actually. I don't know why I don't reach for it enough. I think it's scratching another, I think the whole feeling young, feeling like my inner child stuff kind of thing. There are other decks that are filling that space, and so this one isn't, and it's somehow missing the mark on it for me. But I think somebody else could really use it perhaps. So that's why I'm kind of like, oh, you know, maybe it's time just to let this one go. So I'm just trying to find a place to put the cards actually while I show you the next thing, which is its guidebook, which is phenomenal. Like it's, so let me get you a card here. Let's take a card. Okay, so this is Page of Fire. And for the Page of Fire, Queen of Fire, so not far off here. King of Fire, 10 of... It's one of those guidebooks. Oh, here it is. So what you'll get is you'll get here keywords, then you'll get the animal archetype, card description, the 4 knights, so in comparison, as siblings to the knights. This is interesting. I can't even remember this, but it's just, and then Dimitri meanings, which is quite, I think you get quite a lot of meat per card. You know, and it gives you also like, you know, the astrological signs it's related to. So if you want to do some, you know, it's how does this one relate to astrology? It's all that. It talks about the meerkat, why the author has chosen the meerkat. It talks about the description of the clothing. I mean, there's a lot in each in this guidebook. It's a meaty guidebook. It's well worth it. I just don't use it enough. So it's even got some references to Jung's philosophy in here as well, which I really like. I like stuff like that. I like stuff which, yeah, I mean, you see, now I want to keep it. But there you go. There's a good example of a deck that's in my Purgatory box. Now, another one that's in my Purgatory box, which I'm sad to say, but, you know, might be moving on, is the Animal Totem by Lisa Robertson. I love this deck. There's nothing wrong with this deck as such. It's just that I have so many Llewellyn decks, and this one is one of the least favorites of them, unfortunately. The guidebook is amazing. I love it. For each of the cards you'll get, for example, here for the Five of Swords, you'll get kind of like just the initial meaning. Then you get business and career interpretations. Then you get family and relationships. Then you get health and well-being. And then you get card of the day journal prompts. If you want something where you're going to do work with prompts, this is a good one. This has got one of my favorite magician cards of all time, actually, this deck. Let me see if I find them. But this, so I've edged mine in this blue because it matches these backs. That's the blue. Now, I love the cards, but this is where I get stuck on them. If you have a look, you see, you got it there straight away. You see how this looks natural, and then this looks like, you know, it's been made human, basically. And I just don't like that sometimes in these cards, you know. So it kind of like annoys me. I love that one. I do like some of them. Right now, this deck is reminding me of Christmas because I was using it in December last year. Here's the Magician card. Oh my God, I love this card. I love this. And this card has a mixture of, like, you know, nature, but also you've got some scenes from the city in here as well, from towns, from above. I mean, that's very Arctic. You know, it's just, it's a beautiful deck. So I'm stuck. I mean, now that I think about it, if I had to keep if it was a Bohemian Animal Tarot or this one, I would definitely pick this one, actually. So that's interesting. You're helping me out already, actually. I think I might still hold on to this one, but definitely the other ones can go. So yeah, that is the Animal Totem by Lisa Robertson. But yeah, I mean, I like it, but because I've got so many Llewellyn decks, this one is kind of like. And also I've got another Lisa Robertson deck, which I'm going to work through. And so that's why I'm thinking, do I want two from the same author? That's where it's a question mark. Okay, so then I'll put this one down here. Now, the next one is this one. Now, this really disappointed me. This is the Spirit of Nature Oracle. This is by John Matthews and Will Worthington, who I love because, of course, they did, there's Wildwood Tarot, basically. But this really, Wildwood Tarot, and then there's also Druidcraft. So this is from the same authors. But this deck has really upset me because I bought it, I paid like 20 euros for it, and the cardstock is awful. It's so bad that it's put me off working with the deck. And some people won't agree with that, but I'm sorry, I have to say, yeah, stuff like that can really annoy me. So this might go off to a charity shop probably, because nobody will. I mean, like this is how thin the deck is. This is it. This is how huge the box is in comparison to that. Beautiful cards, but they're not resonating. There's something that just doesn't click with me. I think I don't like the faces in trees. I think it's taken me a long time to realize that. And I'm sad about it because I actually really like Druidcraft, and I actually like the Animal Oracle that's been produced within this series, but it's called Druid Animal, I think. I can't remember. I actually use the Animal Oracle deck quite a bit, but just the tree. And I'm a big tree lover, more than even animals or flowers or plants or shrubs or herbs or the cosmos or anything else. I am a huge tree lover because that's where I spend a lot of my time, basically, running. So it just really annoyed me that this didn't strike a chord. So I'm still looking for a really good tree oracle deck. There's another one that I have, again, by Watkins, and that one I do like a lot more. The cardstock is awful again, but I do prefer that tree deck. But this one just really upset me with the quality of the cardstock, actually. Gooseberry. So you've got the rune and the reference to the gods that correspond, the Nordic gods. So you know, it's a beautiful deck, but something's not working for me with this deck, and I have never reached for it since I had it. I regret buying it. I regret spending that money on it. So that's that one that I think that now that I've opened it up and shown you, it's definitely going to go probably. Okay, I have a spare copy of the Wild Unknown Pocket because one was sent to me. It got lost in the post, so they dispatched another one, and then the first one arrived. And I don't like the deck at all, so both are going to go. But at least the one that's sealed, I've definitely put into this box, and the one that's open is up there somewhere, and that will probably go at some point as well. This series just doesn't work for me. I think that you know, Kim Kranz and you know, the people who've created these decks, because there's a series of them. Of course, there's the animal one, and then there's the archetypes, and I've seen those decks being used by other tarot tubers. I've seen them being used by in the pick a card readings. I think they're gorgeous. It's just not for me. It's like one of those things which I can appreciate from afar. Okay, moving on from that. This is another oracle that I bought. Well, hang on a second. No, I'll show you that one in a second. Let me just go back to another tarot, because then this tarot's done as well, actually. So this is it. This is the Nature Spirit Tarot. Now, the people who created this are Bear and Company. And I kid you not, if I see anything else produced by them, I won't buy it because, again, the cardstock is awful. The book to this deck is amazing. Amazing. Let me just... This is the thing. The guidebooks are great. So here we go. Let's pick one. Let's pick one. Three of Wands. Look how much you get there. You get here what the Three of Wands is about, but then you get this whole thing about like the actual animal, and then you get something about like, you know, the tree there. So this is the apple tree. King of Wands here. You get again about the American kestrel here, and then you get about the hazel tree. It's phenomenal in its kind of like detail and what it's trying to help us learn. I think it's a great deck. If you're interested in this area, it's an amazing deck. But the cardstock is awful. There is no other way to put it. It's one of those decks that also came in like the two, you know, these where they split in two. So there you go. So I think that annoys everyone now these days. These are the backs. It's a beautiful deck, but the cardstock has just let it down phenomenally. It's slightly pippish, but I didn't mind that. But I just, oh, well, that was the wrong way around. But I just, it's this weird card basically. It's some kind of like weird cardboard. I don't know how else to put it. I think it's the same kind of like card that you get for like the Wild Unknown stuff. I think it's the same kind. I don't know, but you can see it, you can hear it as I try and... That annoys me. That annoys me. You know, deck producers really, I think that if I was a deck creator, now if a publishing company came, I definitely would need to say, show me another one of your decks, and then I actually have to look at the cardstock. I mean, I know like that's a very luxury thing I'm saying. You're probably sitting there going, no, when a publisher comes to you, curate a shelf, you should just do the deck and sell it because you're going to make money out of it. But I mean, like, this is gorgeous. But again, it does that thing. Sorry about the noise. where it kind of like makes the animals human, and sometimes that doesn't always resonate with me, and sometimes they look a little bit more natural in their efforts. And now I've managed to get them all mixed up in which way around they are, kind of like which way around they're facing even. It's definitely a very pippish deck, but I mean, it's beautiful, but it's annoyed the hell out of me in terms of its cardstock. And can you see it there? It's not cut evenly either. So if I try to trim the borders off, it'd be hell of a job. So yeah, okay. And they're all slipping out of my hand. Okay, so this is another one. Hold on, let me just show you this. This tarot deck I bought because it was €10, and I should have kept my €10. There you go. And here we go. This is it, the last Tarot of Nostradamus. Now, I love Nostradamus in terms of, you know, his story, and, you know, I remember reading and watching this documentary about him when I was like 8 years old or whatever. So, I mean, he's so famous, you know. So, you know, I love it. And this is also by John Matthews and Will Kingan, that famous duo. And you'll get a lot, you know, you'll get per card, the origins of the card, because this is based on the fact that some of Nostradamus was apparently creating a tarot deck, and then some of it was made and some of it wasn't made, and then when they found it, they kind of like made the rest of the deck, so it's kind of like a semi-Nostradamus deck kind of thing. I'll show you the cards, but I'll show you why. I mean, first of all, the cards don't always make sense in terms of their suits and stuff, which I know doesn't actually help, but okay, just here you go. It's a cool deck, but okay. I think it's a weird deck, really weird actually, but it doesn't really work as a tarot deck because it just doesn't, they don't really correspond to the traditional meanings all the time, so it can be a bit of a headache trying to figure out what card this actually is. But this is the bit where I got really, really annoyed with this deck. Let me show you some others. I got annoyed with this deck because these are the backs. Which is okay. Okay. With a whole copyright here. This is the bit though that made me think, what are you guys doing when you make these decks? The paper quality, I don't know what they've made. I don't know what they've used to make it. It's the backs, not the front so much, but the backs. But they're gritty. I don't know if you can hear that. They're gritty. So when I touch the deck, I feel like I'm touching something with powder on it. So every time I touch the deck, this is what would happen. I would be touching the deck and I'd be looking through, and I might pick a card or whatever and be like, oh yeah, okay. And then I would invariably, and you can't see this, I would wipe my hands on my trousers thinking that I've touched powder. I know it's a bit weird, but that's what it felt like. It says here neophyte. It's a clever deck. I don't know what that is for. Justice, I think. But it's a clever deck, but, you know, it's not just. No, it's not justice. Oh, it is justice. Look, I'm just so confused. This is the devil. But I don't know what they've done to make the deck, but the backs have something on them. It's not all of them. Like this one's like normal backs, smooth, and then this one's got the front of it is what's caused that powdery effect. So somewhere in the manufacturing of this deck, it went through a process where some of the cards this has got all over the back, where they've got some kind of a finish on them, which makes them feel like they've got powder. So every time I touch the deck, I think my hands are covered in something, and they're not. But that's how these cards have been made. So this is the Fool card. So it's a great deck. It's an interesting deck, but it just kind of like annoys me. I'm like, I just want to get rid of it, I think, because I'm not using it because the cards feel funny. Okay, and then finally, because oh my god, this is getting long. Oracle Visions by Ciro Marchetti. I bought this Oracle deck because I really like some of his art, but I have his Gilded Royale because that's one of my first decks. I've just got it for nostalgia, but I don't know. Some of his decks just don't jive with me. I love his Lenormand. His Lenormand is one of the most beautiful decks I ever have. It's gorgeous. I'll get it out in a minute because I know people are gonna go, well then show me the Lenormand then. But this Oracle is just not doing anything for me. It just falls flat. These are the backs. It's a gorgeous deck. And meanings, you know, you'll get something out of them. You know, you'll get like a paragraph or two, but it just doesn't feel like, I don't know, it just feels like another Ciro Marchetti deck. I mean, the fact that I have not been using this tells me greatly that not to buy, for me anyway, any of his indie stuff, because I need to use stuff in order for me to qualify for me to buy more of it. I'm not using this enough. So this is in the Purgatory box, sadly. I think it reads okay too, but I like some of the, I don't like this. Sorry, I don't like this art. I don't like this either. This is okay. And then some of his art, this is okay because it's so beautiful. And then some of it, like, let me find one that, oh, see, I love that. That's gorgeous. So I don't know, it's a bit of it, oh, I do like that actually. It's very clever. So you see, this is the kind of deck which to me would work very well with another deck, I think. But see, I don't like this. And this dude appears in a lot of Ciro Marchetti's work. Is that Ciro Marchetti? I don't know. But he just appears in a lot of the this creator's work, this guy, this image. See, this is the cover art, which I think is beautiful. This is beautiful too, very cliche in some ways, but okay. But yeah, I don't know. I like that. I think that's clever. So yeah, I like this House of Mirrors thing he's got going on here. So yeah, it's a bit of a hit and miss, this Oracle with me. So okay, so that was what's in my Purgatory box. We're at 52 minutes, so I have to stop here. What a long, it's going to be all time stamped anyway. So anyway, enjoy the rest of the week. Take care now, bye.